Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the dating game killer. This is the story of Rodney Alcala. Rodney would be born on August 23rd, 1943. He would be born under the name Rodrigo Jacques Alcala Bocor. Now in 1951, Rodney's grandmother would fall ill, and she had a desire to go back home to Mexico to pass away. So Rodney's father, Raul, would take his mother and his other 3 siblings over to Mexico to where her grandmother would pass away. It's not really stated when she actually passed away, but within 3 years of the time of being over in Mexico, Raul, Rodney's father, would actually abandon the entire family. He would wake up, tell the family that he was going outside to get cigarettes, and he would just never return. And this would be probably the most traumatic thing that Rodney went through in his life. Now, I'm not saying that a child experiencing their parents abandoning them is not traumatic, but considering the life that Rodney Alcala would later take in life is kind of shocking, considering the fact that other killers would grow up and be dealing with a lot more worse situations. So I'm not really sure where Rodney made the distinction of falling into this path of life that he chose. But around the time that Rodney would turn 8, his mother would actually move the rest of the family back to Los Angeles. And there, Rodney would have what most would consider a very stable upbringing. He would actually go through a variety of private schools and Catholic schools, and many would say he was very popular not only among girls, but his peers as well. He would also be on the yearbook committee and also sign up for track and cross country as well. And he would then later graduate high school at Montebello High School. Now, when Rodney was 17, he wanted to follow in his brother's footsteps, so he would actually join the army and try to go as a parachuter where he would work as a clerk. And they would station him at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. But he would find that he was not successful in the military as well as his brother was. His commanding officer would often describe him as manipulative, vindictive, and insubordinate, and would go and tell them that they would have to discipline him on multiple occasions. Now in 1964, Alcala would have a complete nervous breakdown. It is said around this time his father had actually passed away, at which point he would actually go AWOL and leave Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and hitchhike all the way back to California. As he was hitchhiking, he would go to a club, and on this particular occasion, he watched a woman leave the club. At this point, he would grab a Coke bottle, and this is during the 1960s, 1970s. So back then, the Coke bottles they used were the really hard glass Coke bottles, and he would follow her home, at which point he would start running, and he began beating her over the head with his Coke bottle, trying to kill her. He would later go and testify that he had no idea what drove him to do this. He just heard a voice that said attack, and he just did it. Luckily, the girl would actually find a way to kind of fight him off and run away. The military would later hunt down Rodney for going AWOL and would learn about the assault, etc. They would take him back to Fort Bragg, where a psychiatrist would diagnose Rodney Alcala. The psychiatrist would diagnose him as having not just antisocial personality disorder, but also narcissism, malignant narcissism, psychopathy, personality disorder, and sexual sadism. And the really sad thing about this is they would just discharge Rodney at this point in time. They would not give him any type of punishment, not only for going AWOL, but the assault as well. But disregarding everything else, he would leave the military and join UCLA and go to pursue a career under photography. Keep in mind, this is going to have a huge part of everything that he does from here on out. He was actually known as someone that was really into photography. In fact, a lot of people around UCLA and the other places he went to would go and state that he would just walk around campus and anywhere, just walking up to random people and just say, "Hey, can I take your picture?" Now, in this day and age, that would be kind of creepy. And people would be like, yeah, no. But back then, apparently, they thought that was not creepy and not an issue or anything, and he would just take a lot of pictures. At this point, we're reaching what would be known as Alcala's very first crime. I don't believe this was the first time Alcala had done something like this. Because back when he was in the military, he had tried assaulting a woman. And I think that is where things started building up within Alcala. Because everything that happened up until this point was done very successfully. And I think he had done this multiple other times. The only reason this was called his first crime is because it's the first known crime he committed. I truly believe that he began doing crimes way back into his high school days, or probably even before that. But on September 25th, 1968, Alcala would be driving by the Chateau Marmont, where a girl, Tali Shapiro, would be walking out of the hotel. You see, Tali Shapiro and her family had been staying at the hotel because their house had actually burned down. And they were staying at the hotel until they could actually build another house. And at this time, Rodney Alcala had pulled up in his car and started talking to 8-year-old Tali Shapiro as she was walking on her way to school. Tali would start skipping, and Rodney Alcala would still persistently pursue 8-year-old Tali Shapiro. He would drive up to the curb and tell her, "It's okay, I know your parents, I can take you to school." To which Tali would turn around and reluctantly get in the back seat of the car. And he would look at her and tell her, "It's okay, I'll take you to school, it's still early, so we'll stop by my place and I'll show you some posters I took with photography." While all this was going on, a motorist was actually observing Alcala looking and talking into the 8-year-old girl, Tali. And he would actually go and say, "This just does not look right. It doesn't feel right." So as Alcala took off with her in the car, he would actually follow suit and would follow right behind Alcala and would drive all the way to where Alcala would come to his apartment at the time. At this point, he would watch Alcala grab Tali Shapiro by her arm and kind of escort her into his apartment, but could tell that Tali was very uncomfortable with the situation. So fearing the worst, the passenger that had followed Alcala would actually go to a payphone to where he would phone the police, and he would tell him, "I am such and such person. I have literally watched a man abduct an 8-year-old girl. I have followed him all the way to his house. I will go and meet you guys somewhere. I will actually take you to the residence, but I'm telling you there's something wrong." And what the police saw when they arrived at Alcala's residence, they were not ready for whatsoever.